So I did Aeropress in two different batches, two Aeropresses versus um, two at a time, and I tried to do them semi-consistent. I did 16 grams of coffee approximately from each of these grinders. We have the DF64 with espresso, high uniformity burrs, P64 with unimodal multi-purpose burrs. This is the new DF64 with new cast Sweet Lab style burrs. This is the Weber key with 83 millimeter Mazur conical burrs. So for these guys, I did low RPM, a 4 on the Lagome, which is out of 8, I think, or 9 actually, and the lowest RPM on the conical on the key. I'll let you know right now. I think further testing is needed, but the SSP Espresso burrs did, I think it did the best in this test, but kind of a flawed test. I need to, everything needs to be confirmed. So the problem, the P64 was at a disadvantage. It has a little handicap because normally if I was switching from espresso to coarser grounds for like pour over or Aeropress, what I would do is I'd purge, put a little bad coffee through just so that if there is any espresso grind size stuck in the declumper chute or anywhere, then that will purge that out so the grind size is more uniform and more all coarse rather than coarse mixed with some fine ground coffee from the espresso setting that I used previously. So there's no bellows on the P64, so it was kind of at a disadvantage, and you kind of do that to get that out, a little extra out. So what I noticed, I put in 16 grams in all of them. The DF64s, I think I got, let's see, I wrote down. Yeah, I got like 16.3 grams out, which means I'm getting some extra fines coming out with it from the espresso setting. On the P64, I got 16.8, which is, quite a bit more. And I think I tasted that in the cup, a little bit more bitterness, at least when it was hot. But it really changed as the cups cooled. I thought the key was sour at first, and I noticed I did grind a little coarser on the key, or it looked coarser anyway. So that could have been the problem, but as it cooled, it didn't seem sour. So I don't know if my taste buds changed or the coffee just, you just tastes different as it cools. But supposedly it can taste better when something is not too hot. So yeah, I'm gonna say the cool results carry more weight, but I mean most people don't drink their coffee cold, so it's up to you. Yeah, and the cast burrs in this one are not seasoned, so that one was at a disadvantage as well. So what I found, the SSP added milk to these just for the end, but I tried them without sugar, without milk. So I'd say they're all very close. I just tried them again with milk now. I think I like the DF64 SSP Espresso burrs the best for this time, but could be a fluke. They're all very close. The P64, I didn't notice much more clarity of flavor. I think one sip I did, but it was kind of tasting a little bitter at first, and then as it cooled, didn't notice it getting bitter. Kind of opposite to the key, which kind of tasted sour at first, and then as it cooled, it was better. So kind of weird. This one, the cast one, it was kind of tainted. This is actually a Starbucks cup, and I think I liked it when I tried it hot, and then I think because this cup has some, it's not completely sealed, it's kind of porous, I think it has a little bit of a flavor from like whatever was in the cup previously. So I think it contaminated. It tasted a little weird to me after it cooled, after it's been sitting out, and I think that's just the cup, because I noticed with water in it previously, it had a little bit of an off taste after it was sitting out for a while. So yeah, go do some dishes and try with a better cup next time. The key is actually, I mean, I don't think anyone could really tell with this test at least. I couldn't tell it's a Conical. They all tasted very similar, especially with low RPM. It's actually a pretty good grinder for coarser grinding, I think. So far, I've only done a couple tests with it for coarser grinding, and I'm not sure if they're all. I think the DF64s were kind of equal in their grind size because I know the touch point, and I kind of correlated that from the espresso point. Like I think I'm 35 steps up from my espresso point. Yeah, I have this one on 75 and 65 because the touch point is about 10 away, and the espresso point I think was 50 on this one, 40 on this one, at least with the coffee I was using. This one is at 3. Each of these I think is 10 microns, each little line. So the touch point is actually all the way, it's at like minus 14, I think it is. So that might have been too coarse, I don't know. Actually, I'll when I get some bad coffee to purge, to test the grinders, what I'll do is I'll try and compare the grind size visually and feel it and get them more evenly matched before I do the test again. But yeah, I don't have any sacrificial coffee right now and don't want to waste any of my good stuff. So yeah, this is my unprofessional testing results. So far, they're all really good. I think they're all very capable of filter coffee, even especially the SSP espresso Burrs. This one was aligned by my friend who I bought it from. And he did a good job aligning it. The Caspers actually might be even better aligned. I got this from Coffee Addicts, and they aligned it for me with the Caspers, which is pretty awesome. They, like, just based on the sound of the Burr touch, what I do is I spin it by hand so that I'm not wearing the Burrs, but you can hear the sound of it, and it sounds very like, it's not touching and then it's all touching at once. This one, it's pretty good. It's I think it used to be better. I don't know if it changes over time, but yeah, it's pretty similar, except I think it's probably a little less aligned. And then since it's supposed to be aligned, I think it's probably similar to this one. So the best aligned grinder is probably this one, which is the newest. I don't know, maybe they don't hold the alignment. Coffee gets up under the Burr, I noticed, but that might have been with a shimming with tinfoil. Might create a space. I don't know. There's also, yeah, I did notice with the DF64, there's the screw holes have a little gap in them sometimes, or usually I think. So that could be a problem, which lets coffee underneath the Burr. Whether that actually throws off the alignment or not, I don't know. But it's possible. Alright, so this is my second test. I'm using a different coffee versus yesterday. For all these grinders, I dialed them in a little better, I think, so they're more evenly grind sized. So yesterday I made like 4 equally bad coffees pretty much. I think I used 2 hot water for the coffee. It was also a different coffee, both light roasts. This is from Monogram Roasters, Desta Gola. So let's have Earl Grey, peach cherry notes, and I am getting, yeah, definitely tea-like flavor. I used 196 Fahrenheit, much lower temperature water this time in the Aeropress. And I also used a more concentrated brew ratio, which I like better. Last time I did 16 grams in, which varied a little bit grinder to grinder. The key actually did really well. Put in 16 and I got 16 out. This guy I think had 15.6, which is close enough, but these ones with the bellows, they actually got 15.8, both of them. So they did a little better, but I might also be blowing out more fines with this thing. You can see there's fines that accumulate on the chute. Most of this is chaff. I was using this cup, which doesn't exactly fit, so the chaff stuck to the body of the DF64. You get a little static. With the regular cup that it comes with, which isn't out right now, just to save desk space, I don't think I'd get that chaff sticking to the P64. And this cup pretty much prevents most of the mess with the DF64 with the funnel. Just in case anyone's interested. So, taste-wise, I'm gonna try them again. But initial reaction, I thought the Lagom P64 Unimodal Burr one was a little weak tasting, as well as the DF64 with Espresso Burrs. But that was just the first impression. As it cooled, I think the DF64... Actually, you know what? Hold on. So, taste-wise, the DF64 with SSP Espresso Burrs, high uniformity, I thought that one tasted a little weaker than the... but actually they're just at first, and then they kind of all seem about the same strength now that they're cooled. But they're all really good actually, and they're all very close. So I do notice a little more in the P64. I did it at low, like 2 or 3, I forget what I did, but low RPM out of 9 on the Lagom, which helps with clarity. And the P64 has the unimodal Burrs, multi-purpose, version 2, I guess, which is also high clarity. But the clarity difference isn't like that astounding between these two, or between all of them actually. I do notice a little more fruit flavor coming through in that one, but it's very close. I wouldn't say it's silly they called it an espresso burr, because it does so well for coarser ground brew methods. Although I have only tried Aeropress, and I still grind relatively fine for that, I should note. But more closer to filter grind than espresso grind, which is super fine. The SSP Caspers, which haven't been seasoned, they did very well as well. I think compared to the other SSP Burrs, I think I noticed a little more of like a lingering flavor with it. It's, you know what, I should do a side-by-side comparing these two. I think they're similar. A little fruitier flavor in this. Let me try it again. Yeah, very similar. I don't know which one I would say I prefer. I don't notice too much of like a texture difference, like mouthfeel for this anyway. Espresso might be a different story. But surprisingly, the key also did really well, and I don't feel like it's missing clarity. Let me try it again. So, at first I think I actually preferred the key and the espresso one, but now I'm noticing a little more clarity in this one. They're all, it's all very good. Now the key cooled a little bit, I kind of taste a little, I don't know, maybe it's like the Conical, like it's a little less clean, but it's very, this is, oh, I should also note, this is the lowest RPM, and it works really well that way, like for high clarity. Let me try them all again. Yeah, I don't think, if you told someone one of them's a Conical Burr, I think they'd have a hard time figuring out which one is which. But I do notice a little more, this one tastes more like Earl Grey. This one as well, maybe. So, but it is very similar to this one, which is the SSP Casper and the Espresso Burr and the DF64s. I'd say they're pretty similar. Be interesting to compare with Espresso next. The P64, I'm noticing more of the peach cherry, the fruit notes, rather than the Earl Grey. This one is kind of, as it cools, it's kind of a it doesn't really stand out. It's good, but I'm not noticing as much of the Earl Grey flavor. I'm not noticing as much of the fruit flavor. I wouldn't say it's blended like a Conical or a low clarity Burr, because I've compared with Eureka Burrs in the past, and that blends flavors a lot more. I wouldn't go that far. It's all very, very close and very subtle differences. So I'm amazed these things they all can do really good coffee. They can all do really bad coffee if you do what I did the other day and take a nice light roast and steep it for 2 minutes, probably ground too fine for, I think I did it at like 205 Fahrenheit. So yeah, it didn't turn out so great, and I was trying to compare them, but yeah, I think this time it's a much better comparison. Also, previously I didn't waste any coffee by, I didn't clear out the retention that may be in some of these. Especially this guy, because he doesn't have a bellows, so he was kind of at a disadvantage. He had I put in 16 grams, I got out, or maybe it was 15 yesterday, but I got out an extra 0.8 grams. On these guys I was getting out like an extra 0.5 or something like that. It was a little less, maybe it was 0.4. Today there were, at least if there was some retention that didn't come out, at least it was espresso grind size, and at least it was Aeropress grind size, and it's not putting in fine particles from the espresso setting that it was on previously. So surprisingly, I really like the P64. I think it's a great grinder, but it does have a disadvantage of not having a bellows, although I could have been smart and used this little guy, which yeah, that seems to work. It blew some chaff, so yeah. So it's not like when I reviewed the first batch of the Eureka Oro single doser, the chute would get so clogged up. The good thing, the main benefit I think of the P64 over the DF64 is that supposedly it comes with a good alignment, although I got this from a coffee shop that did the alignment for me, and they did a really good job. Whether it keeps the alignment or not, that's another question. Better to have everything precise and less room for error, and not having to do little tinfoil shims to correct the alignment, and then worrying about whether the alignment's going to move over time, or if you change the burrs, you're going to have to do it all again, which is a pain in the butt. It is a lot more expensive, yeah. But the main benefit is the declumper doesn't hold back so much coffee. I think most of the coffee that was retained is probably because it's stuck in the crevices of the chute or something. They really should have done like on the P100 they have a chute that you can kind of knock. You just kind of has a neat little built-in knocker. And I think that would be handy on the P64. Most people just go like this and tap out the last little bit of retention, which is I think like 0.1 of a gram usually. But based on my tests switching from espresso grounds to Aeropress, I did notice there was some finer grinds that must have been hiding in there somewhere and came out. But that was a failed experiment anyway. But if you are switching back and forth between Aeropress or pour over and espresso, then that's something that you should probably be aware of, and just know. Normally I would suggest, if you want the best of your coffee, even with low retention grinder, just put in a couple beans, 0.3 of a gram, maybe 0.5 of a gram if you want to be extra safe. Like if I'm putting in a geisha and I'm switching an expensive coffee bean, and I'm switching from Aeropress to espresso or vice versa, I'm gonna throw in a little bit of junk coffee just to make sure everything's cleared out and everything's the same coffee and the same, or maybe not the same coffee, but the same grind size at least. If it has 0.3 of a gram of some other coffee in there, I don't think it's going to affect it as much as having 0.5 gram of espresso grind when you're grinding for pour over. That's going to affect things more. So something to keep in mind. Also, I mentioned the key did well with 16 grams in, 16 out, but who knows if some of it might have been retained from before. Most likely, I don't think there's much space for the for retention on the key. There is a little bit of need some space. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes I did notice a little bit of coffee cling. I think it's worse with a darker roast or with espresso. I never do RDT, but yeah, it seems. I don't think there's much room for retention in the key. There's no chute. There's no declumper. So yeah, it's an advantage of those. Of that one, but I do like the keys. Large conical burrs, Mazzer 83mm. It does a really good job and seems versatile for coarser grounds or for espresso. It's not quite as clean. Like, it has a little bit of a flavor. For Aeropress, I didn't notice it that much, but it has its own character that it gives to espresso. Which isn't bad, but I noticed the same thing with the Monolith in a different way. It has its own kind of character that it colors the coffee with. So it I find it's kind of like a umami flavor, if you know what that means, on the key, but it's also a little less clean tasting, a little, compared to the SSP burrs. It seems a little more natural, like how the coffee's supposed to taste. Same thing with the LM Shuriken burrs on the Monolith flat. It makes everything taste like, it tones down the acidity, tones down the bitterness. It makes everything really nice. I'd say overall probably nicer than the key, just because it has a cleaner taste, but it still is changing the way the coffee should taste, but it's usually in a pleasant way, and you're not missing out on too much clarity on either of these, actually, on any of these. They're all really good. So I'm gonna have a hard time figuring out which ones I want to keep and which ones I'm gonna resell. Value on the key isn't really that great, but it is very versatile. If you just have one grinder, yeah, it can pretty much do it all. I think most of these can. There's some quirks and things. I think if you take the time to align the DF64, I'm gonna experiment. Maybe I'll remove the declumper in this guy. See how that works, especially since I have that funnel. I don't think it's gonna be too messy, but who knows. So yeah, that should increase the grind quality. Because I think you do get more fines out of the DF64. It could be because it's a higher RPM that I'm using. This is basically, I think, 1400 RPM, and the maximum this can go is 1400. So they can be equally matched if you want to do a fair comparison. For this, I did not do a fair comparison because I want to see what's best, maximize its potential, which is what I did. And I do notice a little more clarity out of the P64 Burr, which should be expected, but it wasn't actually that huge of a difference. So if it was at higher RPM, I probably wouldn't have noticed as much. That might be another experiment for next time. High RPM P64 versus low. Maybe I'll do the same thing with the key as well, for Aeropress, and see. So much experimenting, so many things to try, so many variables, and so many grinders. Alright, so I did a bonus experiment. I did the highest RPM on both the key and the P64, and this time I actually got 16 grams exactly out of the key, the P64 as well as the key, so that's good. I did give it a tap, and then I saw like a clump of, I don't know if it was chaff or what, but a little clump seemed to come out. So highest RPM, I am noticing when I tried it hot, it is more bitter. I'm not noticing the nice tea-like fruitiness that I noticed before, but I did try it when it was cooler for the first batches. So we'll give it some time and see. They're both similar. Let me try again. So I am noticing the key is actually a little smoother. It's a little milder, less bitterness. Both good, but they lost that nice tea-like flavor that it had previously. Actually, it was more fruity on the P64. But yeah, I'm not noticing too much of that. It's still warm, so I'm going to give it some time. Last time I did add some coconut sugar towards the end, and that really brought out the fruit notes. So I'm going to add an equal amount of coconut sugar, and we'll see if that helps. But yeah, I'm noticing it is a little harsher than before. Definitely more clarity or more nice light flavors with the slow RPM. Oh, there was one difference for the Aeropress brewing. I accidentally did 115 grams of water instead of 100, so that might have changed things a little bit, but I did the same for both of them so that they were even. Yeah, so much better with a little bit of sugar. It toned down the bitterness and brought out the sweetness. Yeah, I'm noticing a little more, not quite as much tea or fruit flavor as before, but both of them are a little more tea-like now, I'd say. Very close. Yeah, I couldn't say which one's better or worse, but I think lower RPM is preferable. With milk, it might be good with a higher RPM. A little bitterness might get counteracted more with the milk. So I'm going to add a little milk and try that. So with a little bit of milk added to both, I didn't really measure, but I tried to put about the same amount for each. Yeah, the P64, the unimodal Burrs, I liked better. I think I noticed more of a little bit of the fruity character still kind of remained, even though, I mean, I didn't notice it when it was straight. I don't know, maybe it just seemed a little sweeter. Could have been due to the amount of milk, who knows. But then, so like before it was pretty much head to head. I thought the key was, could have been better, could have been the same. But then with milk, I think the P64 turned out a little better. But both really good. I'm happy with all these grinders and burrs. I should note, I did try the stock DF64, the Italmill burrs originally, and they are good for espresso. They're fine. I thought they were fine for espresso, but for coarser brew methods, for Aeropress, it's a lot more bitterness. It's less, maybe not less clarity. It's just more bitterness, more fines. It doesn't turn out as good. So if you are planning on doing Aeropress or pour overs with the DF64, I'd recommend getting the SSP Espresso Burrs or any of the SSP Burrs or something similar. Yeah, because I think that it was definitely more noticeable of an improvement for Aeropress than it was for Espresso when I first put in I think I first got the SSP Espresso Burrs in a DF64, and I compared that with the DF64 with stock burrs, and definitely noticed more of an improvement in the coffee for Aeropress than I did for Espresso. So I was kind of disappointed for Espresso at first, but it could have been just, seasoning process, I don't know. I don't have a stock burr DF64 to compare with now. I mean, I do have stock burrs I could pop back in, but I don't want to mess with the alignment, like I said. Pain in the butt, and I hate doing the alignment. I suck at it, so I'm not going to mess up the alignment just to go back to the stock burrs to compare. Someone has a DF64 they want to let me borrow with stock burrs, then sure, I'll try it. So I'm happy with even the SSP Espresso burrs. They do well for coarser brew methods. It's all good.